The last thing I expected on the worst night of my life was for a stranger to smile at me like she already knew my name. I was sitting alone in a diner on the edge of town, the kind of place with flickering neon signs and coffee that tasted like it had been brewed at midnight and forgotten about since. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from the letter folded in my jacket pocket. Eviction notice. 30 days. I had $11 in my wallet and a phone that hadn't rung in weeks, not since I lost my job, not since my fiancée packed her bags and told me she couldn't watch me fall apart anymore. I was 29 years old and I had nothing left to hold on to. And then, from across the room, a woman looked up from her book, caught my eye, and smiled. If this story about second chances and unexpected kindness is already pulling at your heart, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, share this with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story like this one. Now, let's go back to that night. Her name was Mara. I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that her smile felt like sunlight breaking through a week of storm clouds, warm and unearned and completely disarming. I looked away first, embarrassed, assuming she'd mistaken me for someone else. But when I glanced back, she was still looking, and this time she lifted her coffee cup slightly, like a quiet toast to a stranger. I found myself smiling back despite everything, despite the letter burning a hole in my pocket, despite the emptiness that had followed me for months like a shadow that refused to leave. I want you to understand something about where I was in life at that moment. I had been the kind of person who believed hard work always paid off, who believed if you did the right things, life rewarded you eventually. I had spent 6 years building a career in logistics management, climbing slowly, sacrificing weekends, missing birthdays, telling myself it would be worth it someday. Then the company restructured, and someday never came. I was let go along with 40 other people, all of us handed cardboard boxes and half-hearted apologies. My fiancée, Elise, tried to be patient at first. But patience has a shelf life, and after 4 months of watching me apply to job after job and hear nothing back, after watching me stop shaving, stop answering calls from friends, stop believing in anything, she left. She didn't scream or throw things. She just quietly told me she loved the man I used to be, and she wasn't sure that man still existed. Then she was gone, and the apartment felt like a museum of a life I used to have. That night in the diner, I had nowhere else to be, which is the loneliest feeling in the world when you're used to always having somewhere to be. So when Mara stood from her table, walked over, and asked if the seat across from me was taken, I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Nobody wants to sit with a man who looks like he's one bad day away from falling apart. But she sat down anyway, set her book aside, and asked me the simplest question anyone had asked me in weeks. She asked if I was okay. Not how I was doing, not what I did for a living, not any of the small talk that usually masks real conversation. She asked if I was okay, and something about the directness of it cracked something open in my chest. I told her the truth, which surprised even me. I told her about the job, about Elise, about the eviction notice folded in my pocket like a death sentence. I expected pity, or worse, that polite discomfort people show when a stranger overshares. Instead, she listened. She really listened, the way people rarely do anymore, without checking her phone, without waiting for her turn to speak. When I finished, she didn't offer empty comfort. She simply said that falling apart isn't the same as being broken, that sometimes things have to come apart completely before they can be rebuilt into something stronger. I didn't believe her. Not that night. But I remember her words landing somewhere deep, like a seed dropped into soil that wasn't ready to grow yet, but would be someday. We talked for almost 3 hours that night. She told me she had once been exactly where I was, years earlier, after a divorce left her with nothing but debt and a shattered sense of who she was. She had slept in her car for 2 weeks before a stranger, much like I was to her now, bought her a meal and reminded her she still mattered. She said she never forgot that kindness, and she had promised herself that if she ever had the chance to pay it forward, she would take it without hesitation. That night, she paid for my coffee, slid a folded piece of paper across the table with a phone number on it, and told me to call her if I ever needed someone to talk to. Then she left, and I sat there long after she was gone, staring at that piece of paper like it was the only solid thing left in my world. I wish I could tell you that everything got better immediately after that, but life doesn't work in straight lines. The weeks that followed were brutal. I missed the first rent payment. I sold my car to cover part of what I owed. I stood in unemployment lines that stretched around city blocks, surrounded by people wearing the same exhausted expression I imagined was on my own face. There were nights I sat in my apartment with the lights off, staring at that folded paper with Mara's number on it, too proud or too ashamed to call. Pride is a strange thing. It convinces you that admitting you need help is weaker than silently drowning. It was on the night before the eviction deadline, sitting in an apartment stripped of most of my belongings, that I finally called her. My voice cracked when she answered. I told her I didn't know what to do, that I felt like I was disappearing, that the version of myself I used to know felt like a stranger I'd never see again. She didn't try to fix everything in one conversation. She simply told me to meet her the next morning, and that we would figure out the next step together. Just the word "together" undid something in me. I hadn't heard that word directed at me in a long time. The next morning, she showed up not with empty promises, but with practical help. She had a friend who managed a warehouse and needed reliable workers immediately. It wasn't the career I had built for 6 years, it was manual labor, long hours, aching muscles by the end of each shift. But it was work, and work was oxygen for a man who had been suffocating in shame. She helped me negotiate a short extension with my landlord by simply showing up with me and speaking with a calm confidence I didn't have anymore. She reminded me, again and again, that dignity isn't about the job title on your business card, it's about how you carry yourself through hardship. Over the following months, something in me slowly began to rebuild. I worked hard at the warehouse, earned a promotion to shift supervisor within 4 months, and started saving carefully, obsessively, like someone who had learned the hard way how quickly stability can vanish. Mara and I became close friends, meeting for coffee every few weeks, and she never once let me forget how far I had come, especially on the days I couldn't see it myself. She had a way of holding up a mirror to the progress I was too exhausted to notice on my own. There is a particular kind of gratitude that only exists after you've hit the absolute bottom and someone reaches down without judgment to help you back up. I felt that gratitude every single day, and I promised myself I would carry Mara's kindness forward the same way she had carried forward the kindness shown to her years earlier. About a year after that first night in the diner, I had saved enough to move into a small apartment of my own, modest but mine, paid for with money I had earned rebuilding myself piece by piece. I invited Mara over for dinner as a thank you, nothing fancy, just a home-cooked meal in a home I had fought hard to keep. Halfway through dinner, I finally worked up the courage to ask her the question that had been sitting in my chest since that very first night. I asked her why she had smiled at a stranger who looked like his entire world was ending. She said that she recognized the look on my face because she had once worn that same expression herself, and she knew that sometimes all a drowning person needs is proof that someone else survived the same water. That answer stayed with me long after that dinner ended. If this story moved you even a little, if it reminded you of someone who once showed you unexpected kindness, or a moment when you were the stranger who reached out to help someone else, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Your support means everything to this channel and helps these stories reach the people who need them most. Before we close this chapter, I want to ask you something important. Comment the word "grateful" below if you believe small acts of kindness can completely change the direction of someone's life. I read every single comment, and I want to know I'm not just telling these stories into silence. Today, I run a small logistics consulting business built from everything I learned during those broken months, and Mara remains one of my closest friends, the person I call first whenever life gets heavy. I never forgot that single smile across a diner table on the night I had nothing left. It didn't fix my life immediately. It simply reminded me that I was still worth someone's kindness, and sometimes that's the exact spark a person needs to start finding their way back to themselves. Everything fell apart that year, my job, my relationship, my sense of who I was. But sometimes things have to fall apart completely before they can be rebuilt into something far stronger than before, and I carry that truth with me every single day.